A girl in a fur coat looks at the guy who worked hard for her for 5 straight years. She calls him a mere caregiver in front of a swarm of reporters. Then she walks off. She holds the arm of his own roommate. That caregiver is about to become the most feared name in Beijing. Imagine a billionaire's 70th birthday banquet. Crystal chandeliers and old money fill the room. A phone rings. An assistant sprints across marble floors. The entire ballroom finds out the poor street vendor is actually a lost grandson. He belongs to a dynasty that is 100 years old. Imagine a broke barbecue guy walking into a mansion for a private chef job. He looks up at the glamorous chief executive officer signing his contract. The ground drops out from under him. He knows that face. Her plastic surgery is world class. This billionaire president is the girl his school once bullied for burn scars. She was his high school sweetheart. She has been waiting for him for years. Imagine a wedding day. The bride's makeup is perfect. Across town, a kidnapper is tied up in a police van. She screams because she threw away the only man who loved her. Her sentence is 10 years. She will count every one while he enjoys his honeymoon. Let us rewind. To understand how a broke barbecue vendor ends up owning half of Beijing, we must start at the beginning. Everything changed in one single afternoon. Meet our main character, Tong Jin-chen. He is 26 years old. He was orphaned young. He was raised by an adoptive grandma who collected scrap metal. Currently, he works 3 jobs. He runs a barbecue stall in a back alley of Yanjing. Jin-chen lives on 4 hours of sleep. His hands are burned from grill fires. His shoulders are scarred from carrying delivery boxes. His shirt is soaked in smoke that will never wash out. He works for 2 reasons. The first reason is his girlfriend, Xia Jinyan. 5 years ago, she claimed she had a terminal illness. She said treatment cost a fortune. Jin-chen decided to work himself to death for her. Every yuan he earned went to her hospital bills. He skipped meals so she could eat imported fruit. He walked to work in the freezing wind so she could afford heating. The second reason is that he believed she loved him back. However, Jinyan was never actually sick. She used Jin-chen as a convenient wallet and a roof. His flatmate, Ji Boda, also lived there. Jin-chen thought Ji Boda was just a friend. In reality, Jin-yun was buying Ji Boda expensive gifts with Jin-chen's money. One night, Jin-chen comes home from work. He brought Jin-yun a small piece of meat as a treat. He finds Jin-yun giggling with Ji Boda. She tells Jin-chen he stinks of smoke. He tells himself she is just tired. On a Tuesday afternoon, black cars fill the alley. A fleet of Mercedes and Rolls-Royce vehicles arrive. Neighbors stare from their windows. Jin-chen stops his work. A wealthy family steps out of the cars. Xia Jinyan walks through the crowd. She wears a white designer coat. She looks radiant and healthy. Jin-chen asks what is happening. A middle-aged man asks if Jin-chen is the caregiver. Jin-yen gives Jin-chen a cool smile. She thanks him for his service. She claims they were only roommates. She introduces Ji Boda as her partner. The reporters go wild. The middle-aged man, who is Jin-yen's father, nods at Ji Boda. The family mocks Jin-chen. Something in Jin-chen's chest quietly shuts off. He walks back to his stall. He pulls out a calculator. He calculates 5 years of rent and medical bills. He includes the imported medicine and groceries. He turns to Jin-yen's father. He requests 598,000 yuan. The father offers 2 million yuan to make him go away. Jin-chen refuses the extra money. He only wants the exact amount he spent. He signs a release on a paper napkin. Jin-chen takes the check for the exact amount. He tells Jin-yen to take care of her health. He suggests she buys fewer watches for her boyfriend. The reporters laugh. The family leaves in shame. Jin-chen sits in his empty apartment. He looks at an old photo album. He sees a photo of himself at 17. He is standing next to a girl with a hidden face. Tomorrow, he starts over from zero. Around noon, a black car pulled up. The vibe was different from the previous day. This vehicle was a sleek, matte black Bentley. It moved as quietly as a ghost. There were no reporters or smug half-brothers present. A woman stepped out. She was tall and wore a slim charcoal suit with sunglasses. Her heels looked strong enough to puncture concrete. She had long, dark hair. She walked up to the stall with absolute confidence. She looked like she owned the alley and the sky above it. The woman took off her sunglasses. She had sharp cheekbones and big, serious eyes. Her face was the type seen on business magazine covers. Jinchen had no idea who she was. He never reviewed business magazines. She asked if he was Tong Jinchen. He replied that his answer depended on who was asking. The woman introduced herself as Liu Ruyan. She was the president of the HD group. She offered him a job. Jinchen blinked in surprise. He had heard of the HD group. It was a massive conglomerate involved in real estate and technology. It also operated in the hospitality industry. Presidents of such companies rarely searched for alley chefs personally. Jinchen said he no longer did delivery jobs. Ruyan almost smiled at his comment. She explained the position was for a live-in private chef. He would serve one employer in a single household. The pay was 100,000 yuan per month. The job included meals and laundry services. A room was also provided. The length of the contract was up to him. Jinchen set his tongs down slowly. He repeated the offer of 100,000 yuan a month to cook for her. She confirmed that the amount was correct. Jinchen asked what the catch was for such high pay. Ruyan claimed there was no catch. She did not like the food from her current chef. She had eaten at his stall 3 weeks earlier. His skewers were the only thing she enjoyed in a year. She wanted that food every day in her house. Jinchen stared at her while she remained dead calm. He asked why she came personally instead of sending an assistant. She replied that assistants get refused while presidents do not. Jinchen almost laughed at her fair point. He thought about his empty apartment and the photo album. He thought about the check for 598,000 yuan. He had not cashed it because he did not want to touch it. He considered starting over from zero. This stranger in the black car offered a way to skip that struggle. He felt something was off about the situation. Conglomerate presidents do not usually chase down alley chefs. He was too tired to figure out why. Jinchen asked when he should start. Ruyan said he could start immediately. He agreed to the offer. He handed the stall to the neighbor for the week. He grabbed his one duffel bag. He packed his photo album first. He then got into the Bentley. Ruyan did not say a word during the entire drive. She just watched the city slide by the window. Her eyes remained unreadable. They pulled up to a mansion in the hills. The driveway was longer than a typical morning commute. The house featured marble everywhere and a private lake. It even had a staff wing. Jinchen stepped out of the car and gasped. The staff settled him into a large room. The room was bigger than his old apartment. It had a full bathroom and a balcony. He even had a small kitchenette. The sheets felt as soft as clouds. He wondered if he was in a dream. He imagined his grandmother might shake him awake. He thought he might be 12 years old again. However, he did not wake up. That evening, he cooked his first meal for Ruyan. He decided to keep the menu simple. He made barbecue skewers and hot pot with hand-cut noodles. He also prepared stir-fried greens with garlic. It was simple alley food. He felt ridiculous serving it on expensive porcelain. Ruyan sat down and took a bite of a skewer. She chewed slowly and then turned her head away. When she turned back, her eyes were a little too bright. She quietly noted that it tasted the same. Jinchen asked if she meant the same as his stall. She confirmed this and continued eating. Jinchen felt something was strange. Ruyan waved him off and said the meal was perfect. She told him to take the night off. He walked back through the marble hallways. He passed a wall of framed photos. He saw family photos and corporate shots. He stopped when he saw an old photo from a hospital. It showed a girl with bandages on her face. A teenage boy with a red scarf stood in the corner. That boy was Jinchen himself. Jinchen felt a cold flip in his chest. He speed-walked back to his room. He pulled the photo album from his bag. He compared the hospital photo to his own. It was the same girl with the same eyes. Her name was Jiang Wan. She was the girl the whole school bullied. She had burn scars from a childhood fire. No one would sit next to her. Jinchen sat next to her on the first day. He stayed by her side for 3 years. He discovered she was kind and funny. He protected her when other kids were cruel. At the end of senior year, he told her a lie. He said he fell for someone else. He told that lie so she would not lose her scholarships. He was a broke orphan and believed she deserved better. He had not seen her in 9 years. Now, she was running a multi-billion yuan conglomerate. She had remembered him this whole time. She had even tracked down his barbecue stall. She offered him 100,000 yuan a month. She wanted the exact food he used to bring her. Jinchen sat on the edge of his bed. He whispered to the empty room in shock. He realized his new employer was his high school sweetheart. He decided he needed to leave immediately. He grabbed his duffel bag to sneak out. He planned to take a taxi back to his alley. However, Ruyan was waiting in the hallway. She stood with her arms crossed against the wall. Jinchen froze with his bag over his shoulder. The photo album peeked out of the top. Ruyan asked if he was going somewhere. He tried to smile and claimed he wanted fresh air. Ruyan pointed out that he was carrying his entire bag. He awkwardly replied that he liked to walk with his bag. She stepped forward until she was right in front of him. She gently took the photo album from his bag. She opened it to the old photo. Ruyan noted that he had kept the photo. Jinchen could not find the words to speak. She closed the album carefully and handed it back. She told him to follow her. They went to a study on the second floor. The room had a fireplace and a view of the lake. Ruyan poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. She invited him to ask his questions. Jinchen stated that she was Jiang Wan. She explained she was now Liu Ruyan. She had a new name and a new face. She hoped he would notice her eyes. She explained that a surgeon in Switzerland fixed her scars. The process took 3 years and 6 operations. She had inherited money from a distant relative. She used the inheritance to build the HD group. The whole time she was looking for him. Jinchen asked why she searched for him. He reminded her that he told her to move on. Ruyan looked at him with a sad smile. She knew he was lying back then. He was a boy with nothing who wanted her to succeed. She understood his sacrifice the moment he said it. Jinchen stared at her in silence. She had carried that memory for 9 years. Jinchen asked why she did not find him sooner. She explained she wanted to find him as a successful person. She did not want to be the girl needing rescue. She wanted to stand next to him as an equal. Silence filled the room. Jinchen looked at his hands and his grill burns. He told her he was just a barbecue guy from an alley. He had just been publicly dumped. He felt he was not standing anywhere special. He told her she should not have wasted 9 years. Ruyan flatly stated that the decision was hers to make. Jinchen did not know how to respond. He asked if she still liked extra garlic in the sauce. Ruyan laughed and confirmed her preference. She also wanted the cucumber on the side. Jinchen agreed to her request. He decided to stay because he had nowhere else to go. He set strict rules for himself. He was her employee and not her boyfriend. He would not take advantage of her old feelings. Ruyan read his thoughts and simply smiled. She had waited 9 years already. She could wait a little longer. In high school, Jiang Wan had a difficult life. She was 15 when she started 10th grade. Half her face was scarred. Her aunt barely wanted her. The classroom went silent when she first entered. Students whispered and took photos. The teacher assigned her a seat in the back row. The boy next to her refused to sit with her. Jiang Wan stood at the front of the room. She felt like dropping out forever. Suddenly, a chair scraped at the back of the room. Tong Jinchen was 15 years old. He was skinny. Grease remained under his fingernails from helping at his grandmother's scrapyard. He stood up and walked to the back row. He grabbed his bag and walked to the empty seat next to Jiang Wan. Jinchen told the boy who refused to move that he could take his seat. He said he would sit there instead. Jinchen did not say it like a hero. He sounded like a man annoyed that his lunch was getting cold. He sat down and opened his textbook. Jinchen did not even look at Jiang Wan. Jiang Wan did not move for a full 10 seconds. Then she sat down next to him very quietly. That was day 1. On day 2, some kids sneaked up behind Jiang Wan at lunch. They tried to flick lit cigarette ash into her hair. Jinchen saw the act out of the corner of his eye. He stood up so fast that he knocked the bench over. He put himself between Jiang Wan and the bullies. Jinchen was a foot shorter than the biggest boy. He did not care about the size difference. Jinchen told them to try it again. He threatened to break their fingers on the cafeteria table. He said his grandmother would sell the fingers for scrap metal. The kids laughed nervously and backed off. Jinchen sat back down and finished his rice like nothing happened. Jiang Wan stared at her lunch tray. Her hands were shaking. That was day 2. On day 50, someone spray-painted a slur on the locker of Jiang Wan. Jinchen arrived with a bucket of paint thinner before homeroom. He scrubbed the whole thing off himself. His hands remained red for a week. On day 100, Jiang Wan brought him a boxed lunch. It was the first thing she had ever cooked. The food was deeply and terribly bad. Jinchen ate every bite and asked for seconds. On day 200, a boy pushed Jiang Wan down the stairwell. She sprains her wrist during the fall. Jinchen found the boy in the parking lot after school. Jinchen lost that fight badly. He came to school the next day with a black eye. He also had a split lip. Jinchen just grinned at Jiang Wan across the classroom. He acted like the fight was worth every hit. Jiang Wan sat at her desk and cried silently during the first period. 3 years passed in this manner. Jin Chen sat with her every day. He walked her home after school. He shared his tiny lunches with her. Jiang Wan helped him study his lessons. She sewed the tear in his uniform. His grandmother's hands were too shaky from arthritis to sew. Jin Chen taught her how to grill skewers. They worked at the tiny alley stall of his grandmother on weekends. They laughed a lot together. Jin Chen never once touched her hand. He did not refrain because he lacked desire. Jin Chen thought she deserved better than a boy with his background. He felt his family's scrap metal business was not enough for her. During senior year, college application season arrived. Jiang Wan received a full scholarship to a Beijing university. This was a miracle and a door to a new life. Jin Chen had a scholarship offer too. His offer was smaller, so he turned it down without telling her. The health of his grandmother was failing. Jin Chen could not leave her alone. He decided to take a factory job to support them both. Jiang Wan eventually found out the truth. She marched up to him after class with furious eyes. She told him she was turning down her scholarship. Jiang Wan said she would stay in this town. They would figure out their future together. That was when Jin Chen lied to her. He looked her right in the face. He told her he did not want her to stay. Jin Chen claimed he had fallen for someone else. He said they were just study partners. He told her she should go to Beijing and forget him. Jiang Wan stood there. Her scarred face remained very still. Then she nodded once. She turned around and walked away. Jiang Wan went to Beijing. Jin Chen went to work at the factory. His grandmother died 2 years later. Jin Chen ended up meeting Cai Jinyan in a hospital corridor. He was scammed for the next 5 years of his life. Meanwhile, Jiang Wan inherited wealth from a distant Liu family relative. She changed her name and fixed her scars. She built a successful company. Then she hunted Jin Chen down. That was the backstory of their relationship. Ru Yan sat across from him and remembered these events. Jin Chen tried to pretend he did not feel anything. 2 weeks passed at the mansion. Jin Chen fell into a routine. He cooked 3 meals every day. He experimented with new recipes. Jin Chen even taught the kitchen staff his secret skewer sauce. Ru Yan came home from the HD group at 8. She ate with him at the same table every night. She asked him small questions about his day. Jin Chen answered in short sentences. He tried not to notice her smile. She never pushed him for information. Ru Yan never brought up the past directly again. She was just there every evening. She felt like sunlight through a window. Jin Chen started to think he could do this. He hoped to be a chef in a mansion without falling apart. Then, on a rainy Tuesday, an expensive car pulled up to the gate. Things became complicated again. Xia Zhishuan arrived. He was the smug half-brother of Xia Jinyan. Zishuan was the one who laughed at Jin Chen in the alley. He showed up uninvited with 2 of his friends. He waved around a business card. Zishuan said he wanted to discuss a partnership with the HD group. The security guards called up to the house. Ru Yan was at a board meeting downtown. The house manager, Uncle Chen, hesitated. He eventually let Zishuan into the entry hall to wait. Turning away a member of the Xia family was risky in Yanjing society. The family was not as large as the Liu or Tong families. However, they still held some influence. Zishuan walked through the marble hall like he owned it. His 2 friends snickered behind him. They spotted Jin Chen crossing the hall in an apron. He was carrying a bowl of chopped scallions. Zishuan stopped so hard that his loafers squeaked. He asked if Jin Chen was the caregiver. Jin Chen sighed. He put the bowl down on a side table. He hoped to avoid the Xia family for a long time. Jin Chen asked Zishuan what he was doing there. Zishuan grinned like he had received an early gift. He asked if the CEO of the HD group actually hired him. He mocked Jin Chen for scrubbing floors. Zishuan said he had to tell Jin Yin. He claimed she would be shocked. Jin Chen simply stated that he cooked. Zishuan laughed at the idea of him cooking for Liu Ruyen. He said she ate men like him for breakfast. His friends howled with laughter. Jin Chen just stared at them with a blank face. He had grilled meat over open flames for 8 hours a day. He was not scared of 3 boys in loafers. Zixuan swaggered closer. He said he had a business idea. The HD group needed a new hospitality vendor. His family was trying to break into that industry. Zixuan told Jin Chen to get him a meeting with Ruyan. Jin Chen refused. Zixuan asked for clarification in a rude tone. Jin Chen said no again. He explained that he was a chef and not a scheduling assistant. He told Zixuan to call the office. Zixuan's grin went cold. His friends stopped laughing. He stepped into the personal space of Jin Chen. Zixuan lowered his voice. He called Jin Chen trash from the alley. Zixuan claimed his family owned half the retail chains in the district. He threatened to crush the barbecue permit of Jin Chen with one phone call. He said he could blacklist him from every food market. Zixuan threatened that Jin Chen would never grill another skewer. He demanded a meeting immediately. Jin Chen just looked at him. He felt very tired. Jin Chen told Zixuan to leave the house. Zixuan snapped. He shoved Jin Chen with both hands very hard. Jin Chen stumbled back into the side table. The bowl of scallions crashed to the floor. Ceramic shards went everywhere. Zixuan saw an opportunity. His eyes lit up. He grabbed his own wrist. He twisted it against the edge of the table. Then he yanked it hard enough to leave a mark. He shouted loudly for the security cameras to catch. Zixuan claimed that Jin Chen hit him. He said he was attacked. He demanded that someone call the police. Zixuan wanted him arrested. His two friends immediately started recording on their phones. They claimed to have seen the assault. Jin Chen just stood there. He knew Zixuan had come looking for a story. Zixuan wanted to ruin the new life of Jin Chen. This was the same way his sister had ruined his old one. Uncle Chen came running. Security arrived as well. Zixuan was on the floor. He cradled his wrist and moaned theatrically. His friends held up their phones like television crews. Jin Chen put his hands up calmly. He told them to check the cameras. Jin Chen explained that Zixuan shoved him. He said Zixuan hurt his own wrist. Jin Chen insisted that he never touched the man. Zixuan wailed even louder. He called Jin Chen a liar. Zixuan threatened to sue the house into the ground. He demanded a hospital and a lawyer. He told Jin Chen he was going to prison. Then the front door opened. Liu Ruyan walked in. She was shaking rain off her coat. The board meeting must have ended early. She understood the scene in about 2 seconds. Ruyan saw Zixuan on the floor and the friends filming. She saw Jin Chen with his hands up and the broken bowl. Her expression did not change at all. Ruyan handed her coat to Uncle Chen without looking at him. She told Uncle Chen to pull the camera footage. She asked for the last 5 minutes of the entry hall recording. Ruyan also asked someone to turn off the phones. Her voice was quiet. It was the scariest thing in the room. One of the friends fumbles his phone and drops it. Zixuan changed his behavior instantly. He stood up from the floor and forgot about his wrist. He turned on his charm for the president. Zixuan told Ruyan he was glad she arrived. He claimed her staff attacked him. Zixuan said he came for a business meeting and was assaulted. He promised to press charges. Ruyan looked at him. She confirmed his name was Xia Zixuan. She noted his sister was Xia Jinyan. Ruyan stated that his family owned Xia Commercial. She mentioned the company value. She said the company was worth 2.1 billion yuan. Ruyan noted the business was in a downturn. She said his father made a bad real estate bet. Ruyan mentioned his stepmother controlled the shares. She told Zixuan he did not have authorization to negotiate deals. The mouth of Zixuan opened and closed. Ruyan told him he did not have signing authority. She said he was there without an appointment. Ruyan mocked his appearance. She said she ran a conglomerate worth 100 billion yuan. She explained that she received briefings on everyone who entered her house. Uncle Chen returned with a tablet. He showed the footage to Ruyan. She watched the video for 5 seconds, then she handed the tablet back. Ruyan said Zixuan shoved her chef. She stated that her chef did not touch him. Ruyan said her chef was very patient during the abuse. The friends of Zixuan went very pale. They looked for the exits. Zixuan tried one last time to convince her. He suggested that her caregiver was not worth the trouble. He asked her to fire Jin Chen and pay a settlement. He wanted to handle it between families. Ruyan smiled. It was not a nice smile. She told Zixuan she wanted to clarify something. Ruyan said Jin Chen was not just her caregiver or her chef. She walked over to Jin Chen. She took his hand casually. She acted as if she had done it every day for years. Ruyan laced her fingers through his. The brain of Jin Chen short-circuited. Ruyan looked at Zixuan calmly. She identified Tong Jin Chen as her boyfriend. She said she had been trying to convince him to move in for 2 weeks. Ruyan accused Zixuan of attacking her boyfriend in her home. There was a long and ringing silence. Zixuan made a sound like a punctured tire. He was shocked that Jin Chen was her boyfriend. Zixuan mentioned that his sister called him a caregiver. Ruyan called his sister a liar. She said Xia Jinyan pretended to be ill for 5 years. Jinyan did this to hide from a takeover attempt. Ruyan said she used Jinchen as a personal bank. She said Jinyan drained 5 years of his youth. Then she discarded him when her father arrived with money. Ruyan claimed to have every receipt and hospital record. She had the false diagnosis paperwork from the fake doctor. Ruyan said she had been waiting for a reason to open the file. She asked Zixuan if he wanted to be that reason. Zixuan stopped breathing. Ruyan continued in a calm and almost bored voice. Ruyan spoke about the family of Zixuan. She said his father was 1 bad quarter away from a margin call. His stepmother was quietly moving assets offshore. She did not do that out of love for the family. She planned to take the money and run. When she left, Saya Commercial would go under. Zixuan would find out that a business card and a loud voice do not pay rent. No one in the city would hire him because of his track record. He would not even find work as a caregiver. Zixuan turned the color of a hospital wall. Ruyan released the hand of Jinchen. She stepped toward Zixuan. Her movement was not aggressive. She just stood close. Ruyan gave him 30 seconds to leave her house. She threatened to countersue if he tried to sue them. The charges would include aggravated harassment and fraudulent injury claims. She would also include unauthorized entry. Ruyan promised to attach evidence to a court case against his sister. She warned him about posting phone videos. If he did, the entire business district in Yanjing would know. They would learn why his family was about to collapse. Ruyan asked if they were clear. Zixuan nodded so fast that his neck almost snapped. His friends were already at the door. Ruyan told Uncle Chen to show them out. She wanted the security team to walk them to the gate. She also asked him to email the footage to her legal team. This was a precaution. Zixuan practically ran. His friends beat him to the car. Their cheap car peeled out of the driveway. It sprayed gravel everywhere. Jinchen stood in the entry hall. His hand still tingled from where Ruyan held it. His brain was still recovering. He whispered the word, boyfriend. Ruyan turned to him with a very serious face. She apologized and called it an emergency title. She told him he could demote himself back to chef. Jinchen noted that she had a 6-month file on the fake diagnosis. Ruyan confirmed that she did. Jinchen asked how she got it. She gave a tiny and elegant shrug. She explained that she had been looking for him for 9 years. When she found him 1 year ago, she found Jinyan too. She looked into who lived in his apartment. She checked his bank statements and paychecks. Ruyan found the doctor and the diagnosis papers. She found the missing pathology reports. A lawyer had been holding the information since spring. Ruyan was waiting for him to be free. She did not want to break his 5-year relationship for him. Jinchen had to walk out on his own. She said he did so beautifully with a calculator. Jinchen did not know what to say. He said he needed to go make dinner. He planned to make her garlic noodles. Ruyan agreed. He walked toward the kitchen very slowly. He looked like a man trying not to trip. Ruyan watched him go. She looked up at the ceiling and let out a long breath. It had been 9 years. She finally got to hold his hand. Uncle Chen returned to the hall. He politely pretended not to see her face. He informed her that the Tong estate had called. Invitations for the 70th birthday banquet went out this morning. Ruyan was on the primary guest list. The invitation included a +1. The head of Ruyan snapped around. She asked for clarification about the +1. Uncle Chen confirmed the news. Ruyan smiled a real smile this time. She looked slow and pleased. She asked Uncle Chen to have a tailor come tomorrow. Her +1 would need a very good suit. Meanwhile, Jinchen chopped garlic in the kitchen. He was having a full internal breakdown. This was not because he was called a boyfriend. It was not because the brother of his ex-girlfriend tried to frame him. He did not care that the family was about to implode. He had just realized something. He thought about the Tong family and the birthday banquet. He had heard that name recently on the news and billboards. The Tongs were at the top of society. They were a century-old family with old money. The president of HD Group was a guest there. He was not the host. A very old and faint memory prickled at the back of his skull. His grandma said something when he was 6 years old. He had asked why he did not have parents. She found him on the side of a road. He had a jade pendant around his neck. She kept the pendant in a box under her bed. She said they would find his origins when he was older. Unfortunately, she died before they could do that. The pendant was in his duffel bag upstairs right now. Jinchen put the knife down very carefully. His hands had started shaking. He whispered a worried phrase to himself. One must understand what Jinchen lost to know why he was shaking. He had barely survived his losses. The story goes back 7 years. Jinchen was 19 years old then. He was skinny and tired while working double shifts. He worked at a bottling factory on the edge of Yanjing. His grandma was 68 years old. She had arthritis in both hands. She still went out at dawn to collect scrap with her cart. He begged her 100 times to stop. She just smiled and patted his cheek. She promised to rest when he was married. Then she rolled the cart out the door. She raised him from a baby. He was found on a rural roadside outside a small town. He was wrapped in a silk blanket. A jade pendant was tied around his neck with red string. She was walking home from the market and heard him cry. She was a widow with no children. She was 61 years old. She picked him up and took him home. She named him Tong Jinchen. She gave him her surname. She told the village he was the son of her late nephew. This prevented anyone from taking him away. She lived on nothing and always fed him first. She sold her only piece of gold jewelry for his school uniform. He was 7 years old then. She walked him to school every morning. Eventually, he was old enough to be embarrassed. She then walked behind him at a distance so he would not see. He loved her more than anything on the planet. He would set the world on fire for her. At 19, he had a plan. He would work 2 more years at the factory. He would save every yuan. Then he would open a small barbecue stall. His grandma said his skewers were the best in the district. He planned to build the stall and quit the factory. He would take care of her full time. He promised her 100 times. He told her she would rest in 2 years. She laughed and said he had been saying that since 15. He told her he had saved almost enough for the cart. She pinched his cheek and called him her little chef. She agreed to the 2-year plan. It was a cold morning in November. She went out with her cart before sunrise. The roads were icy. A delivery truck took a corner too fast. The driver did not see her. Jinchen was on the assembly line when his phone buzzed. He almost did not check it. Something in his chest went cold. He pulled the phone out and saw an unknown number. A stranger spoke and gave a hospital name. The voice told him to come immediately. He ran out of the factory without clocking out. He ran through streets he did not recognize. His legs would not stop shaking. He reached the hospital and was directed down a hallway. He walked past a room where a doctor stood. The doctor saw his face and lowered the clipboard. He asked if Jinchen was her grandson. Jinchen said yes. The doctor told him he was sorry. Jinchen did not remember the next hour. He only remembered pieces. He pressed his forehead against the wall very hard. The tiles left a mark. A nurse tried to hand him a cup of water. He saw her cart in the parking lot. It was still full of scrap, but one wheel was bent. He mostly remembered his last words to her. She was leaving for her cart run. He was half asleep and spoke over his shoulder. He told her to bring back extra buns because they were almost out. He did not say he loved her. He did not say to be careful. He only mentioned the buns. He could not get that sentence out of his head. This lasted for the next 8 months. He fully fell apart. He did not go back to the factory. He did not answer the door. Jinchen lay in his room, with the curtains drawn. He did not eat for 4 days at a time. Neighbors slid food under the door. The food went cold on the floor. He looked at the bent cart wheel. He looked at her pillow and her cheap slippers. He could not make himself move them. He thought about following her more than once. He stood on the balcony at 3 in the morning. He looked down at the alley and considered it. The only thing that stopped him was her voice. He remembered a time he tried to skip school in 3rd grade. She told him he did not get to quit. He could not quit on her or himself. He sat on the balcony floor and cried until he threw up. Then he crawled back inside. He ate a cold bun that the neighbor had provided. Slowly he began to get up. It was not all the way, but it was enough. He sold everything except her pillow and one photo. He moved to a smaller room. Jinchen got a job washing dishes. Then he worked a job doing deliveries. He saved enough money to buy a used barbecue cart. He started the alley stall. It was exactly what he had promised her. However, it was 2 years too late. A few months later, he went to a hospital. He had a burn on his arm from the grill. He saw a pretty girl named Xia Jinyan in the hospital corridor. She was sitting on a bench and crying. She said she had just received a terminal diagnosis. She had no family and no one to help her. He looked at the crying girl. He looked at the empty space in his life. He handed her a napkin. 5 years of exploitation started at that moment. Now the story returns to the present day. Jinchen was in the mansion kitchen. His hands were shaking. The pendant was upstairs in his duffel bag. He had not looked at it in years. He carried it everywhere but avoided looking at it. It hurt too much. His grandma had kept it in a red silk pouch. After she died, he moved it to his bag. He turned off the stove and walked upstairs. Uncle Chen passed him in the hallway. He gave Jinchen a polite and worried look. Jinchen sat on his bed and opened the bag. He reached the bottom and pulled out the red pouch. He loosened the string and slid the pendant into his palm. It was a jade dragon. The dragon was curled in on itself. It was about the size of a large coin. The piece was very old. There was a small character carved on the underside. The character was Tong. It matched the character on the letterhead. This was the invitation that Uncle Chen had mentioned. Jinchen closed his fingers around the jade. He pressed it to his forehead and breathed. He whispered to his grandma that he finally knew. He did not tell Ruyan yet. He wanted to be sure. He did not want to embarrass himself. Jinchen did not want to approach a powerful family with just a rock. He tucked the pendant back into the pouch. He put the pouch in his pocket. He went downstairs and finished the garlic noodles. Ruyan ate and watched him. She said nothing. She could tell something had changed. However, she did not push him. That was her way. She never pushed. He could not sleep that night. He sat on the balcony of his room. The pendant was in his palm as he looked at the sky. His grandma used to talk about the stars. She said his real family looked at the same stars. He never believed her then. 3 days later, a tailor arrived at the mansion. This moment was very important. Jinchen had spent his adult life in aprons and factory jumpsuits. His nicest shirt had a bleach stain on the collar. He did not even own a belt. The tailor took one look at him. He rubbed his hands together. He looked like a chef who had just seen a good cut of beef. Tailors took measurements and examined fabric swatches. Ruyan sat in the corner in a soft chair with a cup of tea. She watched the process with one leg crossed over the other. A small and dangerous smile played on her face. The tailor suggested midnight blue instead of charcoal. He proposed taking in the shoulders and adding a slightly higher collar. He then asked for permission to touch the subject. Ruyan gave her permission, and the tailor grabbed the chin of Jinchen. He turned the face of the young man to the left and then to the right. The tailor remarked that Jinchen had hidden an excellent jawline under grill smoke. Jinchen turned bright red at the compliment, and Ruyan laughed into her tea. A suit fitting and a haircut followed the initial work. A polite man arrived to teach Jinchen how to knot a tie. Jinchen tried 3 times before succeeding on the 4th attempt. Jinchen did not recognize the man looking back in the mirror. His skin had cleared up after a week of proper sleep. His eyes appeared much brighter than before. The midnight blue suit fit perfectly, as if someone had carved it onto his shoulders. A subtle silver pin adorned the lapel of the jacket. His hair was trimmed short on the sides and styled intentionally on top. He stood tall and broad and looked remarkably handsome. 5 years of malnutrition and stress had hidden his natural features. 2 weeks in the household of Ruyan polished him like a precious stone. Ruyan stood beside him and looked into the mirror. She wore a deep green gown that caught the light. She reached up to adjust the collar with a tiny tug. She stood on her toes to reach him and declared that he looked perfect. They looked at each other in the mirror, but neither of them spoke. Jinchen eventually cleared his throat. He told Ruyan there was something he wanted to show her before they departed. He pulled a pendant from his pocket and set the item on the vanity. Ruyan picked up the pendant carefully and turned it over. She saw the character and her eyes widened for a second. She asked Jinchen where he had obtained the piece. Jinchen explained he had worn it since infancy. His grandmother found him with the jewelry. Silence followed the revelation. Ruyan asked if he knew the significance of the jade. Jinchen admitted he only recognized the character. Ruyan explained it was a specific family jade. Such pieces were reserved for firstborn or claimed sons. She examined the dragon posture and carving style in the light. Ruyan believed the grandfather of Old Master Tong had carved it. Jinchen asked Ruyan for the truth. He questioned if she knew his identity before inviting him to the banquet. He wanted to know her intentions for the evening. Ruyan looked at him with a soft expression. She suspected the truth but did not know for certain. They had met when Jinchen was 17. The adoption story of Jinchen had never quite made sense to her. For 20 years, people in Yanjing society whispered about the missing grandson. Ruyan wanted Jinchen to walk into the room with confidence. Jinchen closed and then opened his eyes. He agreed to go. Ruyan told him he did not have to say anything to the guests. He could simply attend as her guest and enjoy the food. Jinchen accepted this plan. However, he put the pendant on under his shirt. It rested against his skin where his grandmother tied it 26 years ago. They then departed for the banquet. The estate of the Tong family was a massive compound. It featured old walls and ancient trees. Lanterns lined the stone path. 120 hand-picked guests attended the event. Old Master Tong sat at the head table in a red robe. He was 70 years old today. 2 children and 12 grandchildren surrounded him. An empty chair sat to his immediate left. No one had sat there for 26 years. That chair belonged to the grandson of the old man. 26 years ago, the youngest Tong's son and his wife died. The car accident occurred on a rural road. Their infant son of 6 months disappeared from the site. Kidnapping was suspected, but no ransom call ever came. The family believed the taker had panicked and abandoned the child. Search parties found nothing for years. Old Master Tong kept the empty chair at his table. He maintained that his grandson would eventually return home. Guests usually smiled politely and pitied the old man. Then Ruyan and Jinchen walked into the room. Every guest turned to look at them. Lu Ruyan was a very influential figure. Bringing a guest was a significant event. Whispers rippled through the crowd immediately. People wondered about the identity of the handsome stranger. No one recognized him, and this fascinated the crowd. They crossed the room as Ruyan greeted the guests. She introduced Jinchen by name only. She did not elaborate on his background. Ruyan enjoyed the curiosity of the crowd. They eventually reached the head table. Old Master Tong stood up out of respect for her. Ruyan bowed and wished him a long life of health. Old Master Tong smiled at her with fondness. He had known her since she was 23. He respected her greatly. Then his gaze shifted to Jinchen. He looked at the young man for 5 seconds. The entire room noticed the long silence. The smile of the old man faltered. He narrowed his eyes and gripped his cane tightly. The old man asked for the name of the young man. Jinchen replied that his name was Tong Jinchen. Old Master Tong repeated the surname. He then asked where the young man was from. Jinchen kept his voice steady as he had practiced. He explained that a grandmother raised him outside Yanjing. She found him on a rural road as an infant. She had given him his name. His grandmother was no longer alive. The room grew silent as guests realized the connection. Everyone knew the story of the missing Tong grandson. Old Master Tong sat down very slowly. His eyes were wet with emotion. He asked Jinchen for the year of his discovery. Jinchen provided the year and the month. His heart hammered in his chest. Jinchen reached into his collar and pulled out the jade pendant. The old man made a soft sound. He reached out with a shaking hand. Jinchen leaned forward to let him hold the pendant. The old man turned the jade over. He saw the character and the familiar carving. He noticed a small chip in the tail of the dragon. He remembered his father making that mark 80 years ago. Old Master Tong closed his eyes. At that moment, the Xia family entered the silent hall. Xia Jinyan arrived on the arm of her father. She wore a red gown. Jiboda and Xia Zixuan followed closely behind. The Xia family was wealthy enough to attend. They were not as rich as the Tong family. However, they were on the guest list. Jinyan scanned the room for important guests. Her father smiled at a nearby businessman. Her gaze swept past the head table. She stopped and looked back. She saw Jinchen standing near Old Master Tong. The old man held the jade pendant. Jinyan made a confused sound and whispered the name Jinchen. Every head in the room turned toward her. Zixuan followed the gaze of his sister. He saw Jinchen and stopped walking. Jiboda bumped into him and stared in shock. Zixuan tried to salvage the situation with a smirk. He shouted that the caregiver had received a haircut. He asked if Jinchen had crashed the banquet. Nobody in the room laughed at the joke. Old Master Tong continued to hold the pendant. He did not look up from the jade. His voice sounded like quiet steel. He asked who had spoken. Zixuan faltered and introduced himself. He claimed his family was there to pay respects. He called Jinchen a former employee and a nobody. Zixuan said Jinchen was just a caregiver from an alley. Old Master Tong commanded silence. Zixuan immediately stopped talking. Ruyan stepped forward and addressed the table. She looked directly at Jinyan and Zixuan. Ruyan formally introduced Tong Jinchen. He was 26 years old. A widow had raised him after finding him on a roadside. Ruyan had prepared birth records and witness testimony. She also had a DNA kit ready for verification. A deep silence fell over the influential guests. Old Master Tong looked directly at Ruyan. He asked if she had known the truth. Ruyan replied that she had suspected it for a year. He asked why she had not come to him. Ruyan explained that Jinchen was not ready until now. Old Master Tong nodded after a long moment. He then turned to the young man. He asked Jinchen to sit with him. Jinchen looked at the empty chair. It had remained vacant for 26 years. Jinchen finally sat down in it. Old Master Tong took the hand of the young man. He held it in silence. His shoulders shook slightly with emotion. The assistant of Ruyan appeared at the door. She took the DNA swab and left. The results would take 90 minutes. Old Master Tong allowed the banquet to continue. He announced that the meal would begin. His eldest son made a traditional toast. The old man ate and drank with his guest. He only released the hand of Jinchen to eat. Jinyan stood frozen in the middle of the room. Her father tried to lead her to their seats. Zixuan whispered that it was a scam. He claimed Ruyan was playing a joke. He insisted that Jinchen was a nobody. Zixuan could not believe the situation was real. Jinyan did not answer her brother. She stared at Jinchen at the head table. He did not look at her once. This lack of attention hurt her for the first time. Boda leaned in to speak to Jinyan. He noted that the suit cost more than his car. Jinyan told him to remain silent. Boda tried to speak again, but she stopped him. The Shah family eventually sat at their table. They were placed in the outer ring. They ate in silence for 85 minutes. Zixuan continued to whisper that it was impossible. After 90 minutes, the assistant re-entered the ballroom. She walked calmly to Ruyan and handed her a folder. Ruyan gave the unopened folder to Old Master Tong. He read the contents and closed it slowly. He stood up and the room followed. His voice was soft and full of emotion. Old Master Tong announced that there was a 99.9% match with his son. He addressed the family, the friends, and the honored guests. He turned and placed his hand on the shoulder of Jinchen. The old man said that he had finally received the only gift he ever wanted. He asked everyone to welcome his grandson, Tong Jinchen, home. Jinchen was the youngest son of his late son. He had been missing for 26 years. Tonight, he finally returned to this table. Master Tong raised his cup to his grandson. 120 voices repeated the toast. Some people in the room began to cry. Older relatives remembered the original search parties. Former business partners of his late son looked on with emotion. Old Master Tong sat down while still holding Jinchen. A single tear rolled into his beard. Jinchen sat very still. He felt like he might fall apart if he moved. He looked up and saw Ruyan across the table. Ruyan lifted her cup toward him and gave him a small smile. Jinchen quietly mouthed his thanks to her. Ruyan mouthed back a welcome home. At the outer table, the face of Jinyan was as white as her plate. Zixuan seemed to experience 5 stages of grief all at once. Boda tried to text someone under the table. He was likely trying to sell the story to a tabloid. However, there was no signal on the wireless internet. The elder Xia, who is the father of Jinyan, stood up shakily. He tried to raise his cup to toast Old Master Tong. His hands shook so hard that wine spilled onto the tablecloth. The elder Shah had just realized the gravity of the situation. His own daughter had publicly discarded the man on camera. This news was already public. The man was now the confirmed heir of the Tong family. Jinyan had called him a mere caregiver in front of reporters. This happened only a few weeks ago. Every person in the Yanjing business world would know the story by tomorrow morning. Zixuan sank into his chair like a deflating balloon. Events moved quickly after the announcement. Jinchen stood up from her seat and walked toward the head table. She walked straight through the middle of the banquet hall. Every guest turned to watch her move. She stopped directly in front of Jinchen. Her father hissed for her to come back, but she ignored him. Jinyan spoke the name of Jinchen. He finally looked up at her. They shared 20 seconds of eye contact. His face remained completely blank. Jinchen asked Xia Jinyan if she had business with the Tong family. Jinyan flinched because he used her full name like a stranger. She pleaded with him and said she did not know his identity. Jinchen interrupted and asked what she would have done if she had known. Jinyan said she would have acted differently. Jinchen suggested that she would have loved him then. She eagerly agreed and claimed it was all a misunderstanding. Jinchen spoke her full name again to stop her. His voice was quiet, but everyone in the ballroom was listening. Jinchen explained that he worked 3 jobs for 5 years. He paid for medical treatments that she never actually received. He skipped meals so that she could eat. He even burned his hands to afford medicine she did not need. Jinchen did all of this because he loved her. He did not care about wealth or status. He would have done it even if she were the poorest woman on the planet. Jinchen noted that she only loved him now that he was rich. He told Jinyan to listen to her own words. Jinchen stood up calmly and fixed his cuffs. He asked Master Tong for permission to be excused. Jinchen wanted to walk the guest to the door. Master Tong nodded and told his grandson to take his time. Jinyan flinched at the word grandson. Jinchen offered Jinyan his arm with mock politeness. She did not take the arm. He walked beside her through the silent ballroom toward the double doors. Her humiliated father gathered the rest of the family and followed them. The Xia family left the compound in silence. At the door, Jinchen looked at Jinyan one last time. He did not look angry or smug. Jinchen told Jinyan to take care of her family because they would need her. She did not understand the warning yet. In 1 week, her stepmother would steal everything and the company would collapse. Jinchen walked back into the banquet hall. Master Tong and the guests lifted their cups in another toast. Jinchen sat in the chair that had been empty for 26 years. He touched the pendant against his chest. In his mind, he told his grandmother that he finally made it home. It took 1 week for the Xia family to fall. On Monday morning, the business news focused on the story. Every tabloid in Yanjing reported that the Tong family recovered the missing heir. The articles featured photos of Jinchen and the pendant. The Tong family stock price increased by 8%. Every major company in the city sent flowers to the compound. Every article contained a specific line in the 5th paragraph. It mentioned that the heir was the same man from the recent video. In that video, Xia Jinyan had called the heir a caregiver. No one was kind about that detail. By Monday afternoon, the Xia name became a joke. Online groups shared the alley video next to the banquet photo. People used a caption about her opening her mouth. On Monday evening, the elder Xia received a cold phone call. His largest lender was pulling his credit line. On Tuesday morning, 3 more lenders called the family. No one wanted to do business with the Xia family anymore. The family name had become radioactive. Humiliating the Tong grandson was a career-ending mistake for any banker. Bankers are cautious and flee from risk immediately. On Tuesday afternoon, the elder Xia called an emergency meeting. His wife did not attend the meeting. He tried to call her, but her phone was turned off. The family accountant also refused to answer his calls. He drove to the bank in a panic. The banker could not look him in the eye. Over the last 6 months, the stepmother transferred the family wealth. She moved the money into 3 offshore accounts in her name. The elder Xia had legally signed the documents himself. He thought the papers were for tax restructuring. He signed them because he did not review documents carefully. The stepmother emptied the accounts yesterday. She boarded a flight to Switzerland this morning. She traveled with the father of jade. The two had been lovers for 2 years. The relationship between Jinyan and jade had been a lie. On Tuesday night, the company stock was halted. The stock was removed from the exchange on Wednesday. By Thursday, creditors began to seize all family assets. They lost their mansion, their cars, and their vacation homes. By Friday, the family moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment. Jade disappeared in the middle of the night. Zixuan tried to call his contacts, but no one answered. Jinyan stopped leaving the apartment. She lay on a rented mattress and watched the alley video repeatedly. She watched herself call Jinchen a caregiver. She saw him use the pink calculator. He had refused 2 million yuan out of pride. She remembered how he walked home in the snow. This allowed her to pay the heating bill. She remembered the nights he stayed up for 40 hours. He cared for her when she had the flu. He still went to work at 5 in the morning. He never once asked her for a single thing. Jinyan lay on the mattress and began to cry. She realized that he had loved her perfectly for 5 years. She had treated him like a household appliance. However, Jinyan did not learn her lesson. Jinyan became very angry. She sat up and began to check the news. 1 week after the banquet, she saw a new article. The Tong and Liu families confirmed an engagement. Jinchen and Ruyan were to marry next month. Jinyan stared at the headline and convinced herself of a lie. She told herself that Ruyan was manipulating Jinchen. She believed she could win him back if they were alone. She thought this would save her family. This was a desperate plan from a broken person. She called Zixuan and he agreed to help. She sold her last piece of jewelry to fund the plan. She rented a van for the operation. The plan was simple and dangerous. 3 days before the wedding, Jinchen left the compound. He left at 7 in the morning for a tuxedo fitting. The drive was only 10 minutes long. Jinchen went alone because he was not used to security. He took a small car by himself. 1 block from the tailor shop, a delivery van swerves in front of him and stops. Jinchen brakes hard. Before he can back up, another car pulls in behind him. 3 men in ski masks get out of the van. One of them is holding a stun baton. Jinchen sees a watch under the sleeve of the second man. He recognizes it as the watch belonging to Zixuan. This was the same watch Zixuan used to flash in the alley. Jinchen sighs because he does not have time to be scared. He is mostly annoyed. He is supposed to be at the tailor shop in 8 minutes. They pull him out of the car, they cuff his wrists in front with cable ties, then they toss him in the back of the van and drive. Half an hour later, the van pulls into an abandoned rooftop parking structure. It sits on the edge of the city at an old construction site. The site is half finished and the wind blows at the top. There are no cameras. It is a very dramatic choice. They walk him up to the top level of the structure. There is a wide-open concrete area with the skyline in the distance. Jinyan is already there. She is standing near the edge in a cheap wool coat. This is the coat she owned before she was rich. Her hair is not styled and her eyes are red. Zixuan is next to her and is chain-smoking. 2 guys stand off to the side with the masked kidnappers. Jinchen looks at all of them and then looks at Jinyan. He asks her if she is kidnapping him. She says she needs to talk to him. He tells her she could have called because his number has not changed. Jinyan says he would not have answered. Jinchen replies that he would have answered once, to tell her to stop calling. Jinyan flinches at his words. Jinchen looks around and estimates the distances. There are 2 masked kidnappers. 1 man has a baton, and the 3rd man has a knife on his belt. Zixuan is armed with nothing but attitude. Jinyan is holding a bottle of water for some reason. Jinchen knows he could probably fight his way out. He is stronger than he looks because he grew up in a scrapyard. However, he is currently cuffed and outnumbered on a rooftop. If this goes sideways, he will end up in a hospital. This would happen 3 days before his wedding. Ruyan would not forgive him for that. Ruyan would find these people and end their family line. He decides on a better plan to let her talk. He will let her exhaust her script to buy time. Ruyan will notice he did not arrive at the tailor shop in about 4 minutes. Ruyan does not miss things. He leans against a concrete pillar and sits on the ground. His cuffed hands are in his lap. He looks up at Jinyan. He tells her to talk. Jinyan did not plan for him to be this calm. Her whole speech was written for a man who was scared. She stumbles over her words. She says she knows he is marrying Lu Ruyan. She says she knows what that looks like. She tells him to listen because she thinks Ruyan is using him. Jinchen just acknowledges her. Jinyan claims Ruyan only wanted him after he became a member of the Tong family. She says Ruyan was his boss for only 3 weeks. Suddenly, they are engaged. She mentions Ruyan holding his hand at the banquet. Jinyan calls Ruyan a chief executive officer who understands people. She claims Ruyan saw him coming. Jinchen acknowledges her words again. Jinyan says Ruyan wants a marriage alliance. She believes that is the only reason for the marriage. Jinyan claims Ruyan does not love him and cannot love him. She says nobody falls in love in 3 weeks. Jinyan says she loved him for 5 years. Jinchen blinks slowly and repeats her claim. She insists that she did and still does. She admits she hurt him and said terrible things in the alley. She claims she was scared when her family came back for her. She says she panicked and said the wrong thing. She asks for his forgiveness. She says she has thought about her actions every night. She claims she knows what she lost. Jinyan says she loved him the whole time but did not know how to say it. Jinchen looks at her. He asks her when she found out he was a member of the Tong family. She says she found out the night of the banquet. Jinchen notes that was about 10 days ago. Jinyan confirms the timing. Jinchen observes that she realized her love very recently. He calls the timing interesting. Jinyan goes very still. Jinchen tilts his head. He is very tired but not angry. He asks her if she would be telling him this if he was still a barbecue guy. Jinyan opens her mouth and then closes it. She cannot lie to him. She stands in her cheap coat with the wind blowing around her. Something in her breaks and the truth falls out. She admits she would not be there. Jinchen says that is right. He tells her she did not love him for 5 years. He says she loved what he gave her. When a better giver came along, she loved him instead. When her family came back, she loved them. Now she has decided to love him again. He says she finds him useful once more. Jinchen calls her consistent because she always loves the useful one. Zixuan finally snaps and steps forward with his fists clenched. He tells Jinchen that Jinyan is trying to save him. He calls Jinchen an ungrateful person. A voice from behind them tells Zixuan to sit down. The voice does not come from Jinchen. Everyone on the roof turns around. Lu Ruyan is standing at the top of the stairwell. Ruyan is wearing flat shoes and a slim black jacket. Her hair is up and she is not out of breath. Behind her are 4 people in tactical gear. Behind them are 6 uniformed police officers. 2 masked kidnappers try to run for the other stairwell. 2 more tactical officers step out and stop them. Ruyan walks forward with her hands in her jacket pockets. She passes the guys who put their hands up immediately. She passes Zixuan, who has gone completely silent. She stops in front of Jinyan. Jinyan asks how she found them. Ruyan explains that her fiancé was late to a tailor appointment. She notes that her fiancé is never late. Ruyan says Jinchen kept a tracker on his keys because she asked him to. Her assistant flagged the anomaly in 70 seconds. The police were briefed in 6 minutes. Traffic camera coverage confirmed the van at 11 o'clock. They had been watching the rooftop since Jinchen started her first sentence. Jinyan begins to cry. Ruyan looks at her quietly. She says she gave Jinyan 9 minutes alone with him. She calls it a gift and hopes Jinyan use the time. Ruyan turns to Jinchen and walks over to him. She kneels down and takes his wrists. She uses a small folding knife to cut the cable ties. She rubs the marks off his skin. Ruyan checks his eyes and his hands. She checks his pulse at his wrist. She does not say a word to him during this process. Jinchen watches her face closely. When she is finished, she asks if he is hurt. Jinchen says he is not. She asks if he is sure. He confirms he is sure. Ruyan says that is good. Ruyan stands up and turns around. She slaps Zixuan across the face very hard. Zixuan falls down and makes a small noise. Ruyan ignores him and turns back to the police officers. She lists the charges of kidnapping and unlawful restraint. She also includes conspiracy and assault. She mentions the special aggravating factor for kidnapping a member of the Tong family. She asks the officers to arrest all 5 of them. She says Jinchen and the tailor will testify. Ruyan will testify to the tracker data. She says the Tong estate has prepared the paperwork. Her driver is bringing the file now. The kidnappers and the others are cuffed. Zixuan is 30 years old, and he is crying for his father. Jinyan is the last one to be cuffed. She does not resist or run. She holds her wrists out to the officer. She looks at Jinchen the whole time. Jinchen remains sitting against the pillar. Jinyan says she knows now what love looks like. She says she never looked at him the way Ruyan does. She apologizes to him. Jinyan sounds like a real person for the first time. Jinchen looks at her and nods once. He tells her to take care of herself. The officers walk her to the stairs. At the top, she stops and turns her head. She offers her congratulations on his wedding. Then she goes down the stairs and is gone. Jinchen sits against the pillar for a while longer. Ruyan sits down next to him on the concrete. They sit shoulder to shoulder. She does not say anything. He rests his head on her shoulder and closes his eyes. He tells her she cut it close. Ruyan denies this. Jinchen mentions the 9 minutes. Ruyan says he needed those 9 minutes. She wanted him to hear the truth from the mouth of Jinyan. She says she could have grabbed him in 70 seconds. She gave him the time because she loves him. She wanted him to walk into their wedding with that door locked forever. Jinchen is quiet for a long time. He tells her he loves her too. Ruyan says she knows. He mentions he has not said it before. Ruyan says she knows that too. He says he is saying it now. Ruyan calls him chef and says she heard him the first time. He laughs and wipes his face. Ruyan pretends not to notice. She hands him a handkerchief. They sit on the concrete for another 5 minutes. The wind feels nice to them. Ruyan stands up and offers her hand. He takes it. She tells him he has a fitting in 20 minutes. She says the tailor will be upset. She reminds him they have a wedding on Saturday. She still needs to choose the cake. 3 days later, it is Saturday. The wedding is at the Tong estate. Old Master Tong insisted on the location. He said the courtyard was going to be full of family this weekend. Ruyan wears a dress from Paris. Jinchen wears a suit from the tailor. The courtyard is full of lanterns and family members. There is a table for the neighborhood auntie who watched his barbecue stall. She is wearing her best clothes and taking photos. She keeps crying into a napkin. Old Master Tong walks Jinchen down the aisle. He says he has waited 26 years for this. Ruyan meets them at the end of the aisle. She is smiling a big smile. It is the smile from when they were 15 years old. He remembers her as a scared girl in a classroom doorway. She remembers him as the boy who stood up for her. They say their vows. He fumbles his words once and they both laugh. At the moment they exchange rings, a judge reads a sentence across the city. Xia Jinyan is found guilty of kidnapping and conspiracy. She is sentenced to 10 years. There is no possibility of early release for 4 years. Xia Zhixuan receives 8 years for the same charges. Their father will lose his home next month. The elder Xia will spend the rest of his life in a small 2-bedroom apartment. Ji Boda is arrested 2 months later. He was trying to leave the country with a fake passport. He is sentenced to 6 years in prison. The stepmother is never found. International treaty freezes the 3 offshore accounts 1 year later. However, the money has already moved twice. She lives out her days somewhere warm and rich and alone. The scene returns to the wedding, where Jinchen kisses Ruyan. The courtyard erupts in celebration as petals and rice fall everywhere. Old Master Tong tries to hug the neighborhood auntie. She tries to bow to him as they both cry and pat each other on the back. Jinchen holds the hand of his wife and walks her back down the aisle. He stops halfway down for just 1 second. He looks up at the blue and cloudless sky during the Yanjing spring. He thinks about a woman with arthritic hands and a scrap cart. He remembers a jade pendant tied around the neck of a baby with red string. Quietly, he speaks to his grandmother in his mind. He tells her that he finally made it despite taking longer than 2 years. He tells her to rest now because he will take over from here. Ruyan squeezes his hand and he squeezes her hand back. They walk out of the courtyard and into the sunlight.